a fucking personality.
Oh, hell yeah. What's going on,
Yeah.
guys? The NBA betting market for January 21st, 2021. Fat guy, we're going to start off with the Lakers
We're
Bucks.
live. All right. All right.
1,248 bets. Bucks opened as 1 point favorites at even. They've been bet up to minus 2 point favorites at minus 103. 45% of bettors, 56% of the money is on the Bucks. Let's take a look at the money line. Bucks opened at minus 101. Bet up to minus 123 currently. 80% of bettors have helped bet that money line up to where it is. However, the money is pretty much split 52-48 in favor of the Lakers.
Let's be real here. This is probably the most heralded game maybe so far. Greek Freak, LeBron, regular season winners of last year, NBA champions of last year colliding up.
And on top of that, fat guy, it's the only 7:30 p.m. Eastern time game. So this is getting a prime time viewing slot.
Look at the volume.
It's a lot of volume already. So this game might hit 4,000 or 5,000 bets, maybe more.
Maybe more. And let's be honest here, because now when we talk about exposure is tending to be on the lower handles. This is going to, my guess is the biggest handle so far of the season. And look, it looks to me to be perfectly balanced. Okay, maybe a tiny bit of exposure on the money line on the Lakers, but then there's a tiny bit of exposure on the ATS with the Bucks, right? So I mean, the Bucks win by 1 point. The Vegas middle, as Big Rye likes to, or even 2 is okay. You know what I mean? I think they'd rather 1, but I mean, well, I'm certain they'd rather 1. But that's one of those Vegas middles that Big Rye always talks about. Is they're taking both sides and they have a free roll on a 1 point victory for the Bucks.
Yeah, this is one of those markets. For the most part, it's going to be pretty even on both sides. The thing that's really interesting to me on the money line is that 80% of people are on the Buccaneers, or the Milwaukee Bucks, which I find interesting. I find it's interesting that the discrepancy is like that. I doubt it closes it as 80-20.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting that they've moved the line in favor of the Bucks. So I'm not sure if there was any injury news or what's going on, but that's going to be a very, very interesting market to see at tip-off. So 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, us over here on the West Coast. I'm going to keep that in mind to take a look at this market before tip-off. The OU, fat guy, it opened at 228.5. It's been bet up to 229 though. Heavy juice on the under. So who knows if this is even a line movement at all. 63% of bettors are on the over, helping push that line up, but 77% of the money is on the under. So this is a market that's kind of going in two different directions.
I don't know if it is, though. That's the thing. I don't know if that juice for that half point. If anything, to me, I'm more incentivized to take the over at 229 plus 103, over 228.5 at minus 104. Like the 228 isn't that key of a number, in my opinion, so far. We're speculating, knowing the value of a point. What is that point worth in this application? Again, that's something that you have to kind of do the math on for yourself. But I would imagine that this is actually a line movement in favor of the under. And there is a lot more money, but I would imagine that this is a square bet game. And of that 1,248, I would imagine more than usual, those bets are ATS and money line related. Because I feel like when you get square games, it's more polarizing to bet on one team or another, and that's kind of what you get. Is I like the Bucks, I like the Lakers. It's like they could think of square bets as like settling bar disputes. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, they're going to beat them by this, and Team A is going to beat them by that, right? Whereas the over under is ambiguous. Like, you're not going to find a lot of guys dying on the hill about like what number, the amount of team. Like, think of how crazy we are as humans about what number that humans like two basketball teams combined will score. Like, it's not something you get very like dig your heels in about. Whereas you're going to hear, like, think about regular guys. They're going to do LeBron chatter. They're going to do Greek Freak chatter, all that kind of stuff, which makes me believe that the handle for the OU is much less than it would have been per capita compared to another market.
Yeah, just a little teaser for the folks at home, fat guy. 66% of games have hit under 228.5 or under this season.
That's neutral proration, all right? So that's all the games.
Yeah,
Not
so
necessarily this
that's
application.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Fat guy with some good disclaimers there. On to
yes,
the next
disclaimer's
game.
the way.
We have two 10 p.m. Eastern time games, 945 bets in the Pelicans Jazz game. Jazz opened at 6.5-point favorites. They've been bet up to 7-point favorites, even though the juice is favoring essentially a very minimal possible reverse line movement, despite the line moving in favor of the Jazz. 64% of bettors on the Jazz, 70% of money is on the Jazz.
Yeah, I'm this is either like this is very close. I think this is a reverse line movement. There's more money on the Jazz, and the Jazz have a worse price, but do they? -110 to +102. Is that worth that half point? Again, that's for you to decide, knowing the value of a point and just in this application in particular. So, if anything, I think you're more incentivized to take the Jazz because you're losing half a point. So now you push on the number 7. Is that push frequency at Jazz by 7 worth 12 points of juice from -110 to +102? Interesting stuff. I think not. But again, I don't know. That's purely speculation, Big Rye.
It's a teaser at home. It's fairly close. I'm not gonna say which side it favors, but it is pretty close. On to the money line. Jazz open -250. They've been bet up to -263. 28% of bettors are on the Jazz. 63% of the money is on the Jazz money line. So it's actually
Looks pretty balanced here.
It's a fairly even market.
Going back to what you said, I'm not going to tell the number to the folks at home. You said it's close. Isn't it always going to be close though, Big Riot? Like, let's be real.
Well, most of the time it is, but really what we're trying to do is find those discrepancy on when it isn't, because when it isn't, there is opportunity.
It's called value. Yeah.
I wouldn't say so far out of anything we've seen there is opportunity, but that doesn't mean going forward with looking at all of these markets for all of these sports, there definitely is going to be opportunities that we uncover. And that is also a good time to mention that we do have the membership. If you hit join below, there's also a link to our Discord. We do special videos that go into more depth on what's happening, as well as a Discord, which is 24/7 popping off. There's a bunch of guys in there that are always talking about betting strategy
every
and how to
sport,
make each other better.
Specializing in different sports, honestly, and at least like bouncing ideas off. And you learn a lot just from even inquiry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very interesting stuff.
Boxing, fantasy football, horse racing, MLB, motorsports, college basketball, college football, NBA, NFL, NHL, soccer, stocks as well, and UFC, just to name a few of the channels in the Discord. All right, Fat Guy, on to the OU for this game. 216 up to 216.5. Juice on the over, pushing it up to -113. 66% of bettors are on the over. However, 76% of the money is on the under, despite this line getting pushed up half a point, and the juice also favoring a possible line move up to 217.
I want to know when that money came in, because that is serious reverse line movement, it looks like here, because you are incentivized to take the under. You get a half point, and look at that juice, Big Rye. You know me and juice. I'm at +1 money. 49.5% to break even at +102. That's fantastic. Can we break even? Is it a 50% wager at a minimum for the under to come in at 216.5 at this Pelicans at Jazz tilt? That's for you to decide what's the value of a point. But this is dubious, though. They really don't want you to bet the over here, Big Rye.
No, that is interesting. It is.
That's a weird one. That's one to put a little note on and just take a look at, because you're gonna want to put clown makeup on if it just ends up like 121, 110 or something like that. But anyways,
on to the next game, which is the Knicks Warriors playing on the West Coast. 718 bets for this 10 p.m. Eastern time start. Warriors opened as 4.5-point favorites at -102. They're still at 4.5-point favorites, but the juice has been bet up to -111. 56% of bettors and 89% of the money has helped push the juice in the Warriors' favor. And then also on the money line, they've moved from -183 to -195. 78% of bettors, so a whopping 78% on the Warriors' money line. However, only 63% of the money is on the Warriors' money line. So the money percentages are actually quite close. on the money line. But against the spread, there is a lot of discrepancy here as far as the public being on the Warriors with 89% of the money.
They're still taking exposure in both markets. On the money line, it's very close, like it's negligible. But the ATS, let's be real here. That's a real exposure. It's 89% of the dollars on the Warriors, right? -4, -111. When do you buy back on the Knicks? And I much prefer. I don't know if maybe I don't. This is another question for you. If you're a Knicks bettor, do you like +4.5 at 101, or is 174 better, or is it not matter and one has higher variance? And then here's the other. There's always the default. If it's the exact same expected value, take the one with the lower variance, because over our lifetimes, say we take all of our bets, all of our poker hands, we lump them all together, you're never really going to outrun really, really bad variance. I call it the Gill factor. You know, in The Simpsons, that guy Gill, the guy that everything goes horrible. The one thing, though, is everyone thinks they're Gill, and they probably don't even know a Gill. I think I know a Gill, and he might not actually be a Gill. So the thing is, you're never going to if you're a Gill, you're just never going to outrun variance. But Gill can make this selection. If it's 0 EV, if it's exactly the same EV or very, very close perceived EV, again, we don't know what expected value is ever. It's always just an estimation, right? And an estimation that is enhanced by data sample, right? So sorry that we get into gambling philosophy, but that's kind of where the show goes. It's an offshoot. If you have two identical bets, take the one with lower lower variance because of the Gill factor, as I like to call it. So that being said, when in regards to the Knicks prices, what's better, 4.5 +101 or money line +174? That's for you to deduce. And then also too, if the money line is better, is the new amount of variance when you calculate it worth that risk to you and your bankroll and your financial situation at the time? All of these decisions are so difficult to make. And the other thing, too, is they're on the wire. That being said, the book is taking exposure on the Warriors, and it is a little bit interesting. Mind you, this is the lowest volume of all the games, and it is, I would imagine, by far the lowest handle. Because think of some of the movements that 89% of the money on the Lakers-Bucks game would move this significantly.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Warriors, it's moving it. I guess that could be a half point. It could even be a full point, but it's just 9 points of juice, right? So it's maybe 0.6 of a point, something like that. But that's for you to find out what the value of it is. And is it worth buying back on the Knicks now that the book is taking exposure on the Warriors? That's questions you have to ask yourself.
And the OU would open at 215.5. It's been bet down a point to 214.5. Juice is heavy on the over, though, so who knows how much of a move this actually is.
Not a full point. Yeah.
It's 66% of bettors are on the over. 57% of the money is on the under.
Yeah, I mean, lateral movement, 57% on the money of the money on the under, and then they move the line. Makes sense. It's just not a full point move, which again backs my theory up that the handles on these three markets in regards to the Knicks at Warriors is probably low, and that would make sense. It's in correlation to a 718 betting volume, which is the lowest of the three games. So you could say it's the lines are inelastic, to use an economics term, but that's not really the case. It's just the threshold hasn't been crossed, right? So this is pretty lateral in the OU.
And that's it for the NBA betting market for January the 21st. Good luck in your wagers